Is there something that you could say is your most valuable piece of advice, resource that you can give to our buyers and our sellers that are listening?
Sure. Make sure you're working with a really experienced lawyer who will spend the time.
Hey guys, it's me, Rachel, and welcome back to the Smart Move podcast, a place where I give you all of the information you need to become an informed buyer, seller, or investor. I am so excited for our episode today. In every transaction, this person sitting beside me is absolutely vital to the entire process. From start to finish, I have, whether it's Stephen or another lawyer, but we have our lawyers on speed dial, literally, sometimes annoyingly.
Yeah.
So I am lucky for you guys. We have Stephan Frankel here, a lawyer based in Hamilton, servicing clients throughout Ontario and other parts of Canada, actually, for 43. When did you get into law? Like when you were 3?
Yeah.
43
I
years.
just look great, right?
Welcome, Stephan.
Thank you.
I am so excited to have you here. This is going to be really informative for, the buyers, the sellers. This is something I've been wanting to have on for, this is our second season, but all of last year. So I'm really pumped to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So Stephan, tell us who you are. What do you do? Why are you here?
You got all day?
I've got all day.
So a lawyer.
Yes.
Been practicing. My office is in Hamilton for the last 41 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And practice primarily real estate law.
Okay.
All types, residential, commercial, industrial, mixed use, a couple of custom builders, so do some development work. Mm-hmm. Also, in addition to real estate, I do a corporate and an estate practice.
Okay.
So we prepare wills, power of attorney documents, help elderly clients set up their estates to avoid probate.
Okay.
We set up corporations, do various other types of corporate work. But the largest part of the practice is real estate.
Okay. Yeah. It's, you're right. We could be here all day. In just that, I was like, I had 12 questions for you already. So you've been doing this for about 41 plus years.
Right.
What made you want to get into, number one, law, number two, real estate law?
Well, I'm the son of a builder, so it was an easy lead-in.
I was going to say, enough said. Yeah.
Thought I would end up in family biz as opposed to practicing law. But things turned out in such a way that I started to enjoy the practice of law.
Okay.
Didn't go into the building industry, although I did the legals for that business.
Okay.
And just continued to practice law.
Okay.
I had a bit of a varied practice initially.
Okay.
And that included, oddly enough, a criminal defense practice. So I did a lot of criminal defense work while I was still doing real estate and a bit of corporate and estates. But back in those days, the first 20 years of my practice, I probably did more criminal work and then next to that, real estate law.
Okay.
And then eventually phased out the criminal defense practice about 15 years ago.
Okay.
And focused exclusively on real estate, corporate and estates.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That would probably have some crazy stories.
There
Was
are.
it stressful? Is that
That's
why
another
you're
time,
kind of like,
another
you're
event.
like PTSD? We don't really want to talk about
it. You name it, we've done it.
Yeah.
You know, any kind of jury trial.
Yes.
But that's not why I'm here today.
No, and but what I like about how you said that, like you name it, you've done it, and I think that it really just speaks to who you are as a lawyer. Again, I know Marcy has used you for a lot of transactions. Sure. I just used you in a big commercial deal this year as well. And it does speak to how you run your business. Like you are very professional, but you also are just so knowledgeable that I feel we can just not really throw them at you, but like throw clients at you and feel, okay, we're good.
Well,
kind of hands off for me, right? Yeah,
you should.
Absolutely.
You want to make sure that your lawyer that is servicing your client, whether it's their choice or it's a referral from you as the agent and they've decided to hire me versus another lawyer that might be also recommended, you need to have that trust and faith that the lawyer knows what they're doing and is going to be able to service the client, address their expectations, and make sure that everything runs as smoothly as possible.
Absolutely. Right. It brings me kind of to a question. So in our real estate transaction, I'm giving 3 referrals. Mm-hmm. Technically, we have to give 3.
Right.
Sometimes more. Sometimes it's a shoe-in, right? What are some things that my clients as a buyer, as a seller, when I say, okay, call this person, this person, this person, they call you. What are some things they should be asking you before they step into this process of the transaction with you?
Well, first of all, they shouldn't be dictated by cost necessarily. Most lawyers are ballpark in the same range, whether it's their fees or the disbursements, which are the out-of-pocket expenses that we incur on the client's behalf, title searches, registration costs. But at the end of the day, there's not a huge spread from one lawyer to the next in terms of those costs. So that shouldn't be the overriding factor. I mean, sure, it's a consideration for people. Money doesn't grow on trees. It's a big investment for them. But the best investment of their life is to make sure they've got a really experienced lawyer, because it's probably the largest investment at that stage of their life.
Absolutely.
They should be... First of all, a warning sign is when they don't get an opportunity to speak to the lawyer at all.
Right.
They've talked to the clerk, the real estate clerk's giving them all the information. That's just not the way it should be. No. We when a new referral comes into our office, it comes to me.
Yeah.
I contact the client, I communicate with them, whether it's 10 minutes or 40 minutes, give them some information, answer their questions, give them as much guidance as possible in that initial contact so that they can make a decision on whether they want to use our office or not.
Right. Yeah.
And then we move from there.
Yeah.
You know, our office does our real estate electronically for the most part. Many lawyers still do not, and they're in paper, wet ink, as we call it.
Yep.
So the client has to come into the office. We find that our process is so much more convenient for the client.
It is.
And most of them love it. Once in a while, I'll get a client that's not internet savvy or IT savvy, and they're uncomfortable with the process, and we'll do paper signing when and if we have to.
What I love also is something that where you'd said, yes, absolutely your clients, but having that relationship with the realtor as well.
Absolutely.
So the fact that I can call you, Marcy can call you, and I'm not going to tell you what time Marcy calls him because I know sometimes, but that we can kind of call you and get your advice. I think that speaks volumes to who you are as a lawyer, not just for us, but for the clients. Like, it's literally a team of people that are working for them.
And it should be. You know, if we run into a problem, whether it's from the search of title or otherwise, one of the first calls or emails we'll make is to the realtor who's handling the deal, as well as to the client. We like the realtor to have a heads up, especially if there's a problem on the file. And sometimes the realtors are able to work toward a solution with us rather than us keeping you in the dark. And all of a sudden you hear about it from the client. You don't want that to happen.
No. And when I see the phone number pop up on the phone, you're like, oh, what is it? What is it?
Well, you know, it's I'm sure as you, I don't shut the phone off. So it's 24/7.
I know.
If I get an email on a Sunday afternoon, it's just the way it is. I don't resent that and will respond promptly.
It is what you do. And sometimes you have to. I take my Sundays off. So, but
well, I don't.
But they it is just being there constantly and having that constant communication, which I can really appreciate from what your office, what you yourself, what you do. You had touched on just kind of going back, you had said things that you might find in title. So this is something I had wanted to ask you. Explain what title search is, because this is part of, like I said, you are any lawyer is just vital to the whole process of the agreement of purchase and sale. Once we're kind of done negotiating, everything goes to our lawyers, and then up to you guys from there. So what you do is you search title. Can you kind of explain what that is? Because I can try, I'm just not that good at it.
Okay.
I just say read the pre-printed clause. No. Title search. And then what would be something, some common things that you might find in title search? And then we'll see like if there's anything crazy that you've...
Well, there's title searches and then there's title searches.
Yeah.
And most, unless you're a lawyer, don't really appreciate or understand the difference from one type of search to another type of search. And when we are engaged to represent a client on a real estate purchase, it's not just the title search. We're searching property taxes to make sure there's no tax arrears. There might be some other local improvement charges that are noted in the tax search.
Right.
So we're searching that. The title search certainly is extremely important. And there's a difference, and I don't want to get too technical or bogged down, but often lawyers will simply what we refer to as pull a parcel page.
Yep.
We are searching TerraView, which is different than Geo. And TerraView is the government site where we register our documents.
Yes.
And that's the most reliable and completely all-inclusive site that shows us anything that's registered on title and what it is, and we can pull the documents.
Okay.
When we do our searches, we don't just take a look at the current parcel page. And unfortunately, a lot of lawyers will only do that as their search.
Yeah.
We still engage a conveyancer, which is an independent individual who searches titles for a living.
Okay.
And these same conveyancers were around back in paper registration in the 80s and 90s. And there are certain ones that are still in that business. And they will do a full title search for us, which includes checking the legal description to make sure there's no gaps or overlaps in the description, which is not something you can physically see boots on the ground, but can cause a problem for the client when they go to sell if there's a problem with that legal description.
100%.
So we're checking all of that. We're checking the approximate size of the parcel to ensure that it's not substantially different than what the listing indicated. We are making sure that there are, no liens against the property, which is really quite simple, but there might be easements or encroachments. I was just talking to Marcy about a particular transaction I have where, and this is common in certain areas where there was at one time a public alleyway behind the home, which has disappeared. Literally, it doesn't exist.
Okay.
Boots on the ground, but legally, it still exists.
It's there.
And our searches will disclose that so that we can let a client know if the garage at the rear of their property happens to be 4 feet onto public lands where their fence might not actually be on their lot line.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things we're searching when we search title.
Yes. And then when you do that, if something does come up, what's generally the, other than obviously letting us as realtors know and the clients, but how do you fix something like a fence that's on?
Well, often it's not fixable.
No.
All right. And it's more a matter of identifying if there's a problem and what the extent of the problem is and whether it is fixable or not.
Yeah.
And making sure the client's aware of it. In your offers, there's a title search date different than a closing date.
Yes.
And we make sure we get our searches done and we get something called a requisition letter sent to the seller's lawyer within that required time period.
Yes.
Requisitioning or requiring that seller's lawyer to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And depending what the problem is, sometimes they are fixable.
Yeah.
And when they are, we try and make sure that they get fixed.
Yeah.
And when they're not, we want to disclose to the client, disclose to the agent, discuss what the options are.
Yeah.
And it's very rare that problems exist. And when they do exist, it's very rare that they're so serious that they compromise or kill the deal.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Very rare.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in my 13 years, I don't think I've ever come across something, little things, like you said, but nothing that has killed the deal.
But it happens.
It does happen. I've heard.
It happens. We've had title searches where the lands are not substantially the size or area that the listing purported to be.
Okay.
And sometimes it results in some negotiations,
Okay.
reductions in price,
Yeah.
Abatements for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all kinds of things can happen.
Can you pinpoint like the craziest thing you've found on title that no one knew about? I feel like you've got a lot in your.
Well, there's, we've come across almost anything and everything.
Yeah, I know.
But, there's craziest thing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me to nail down. I mean, we've been buying from a seller that had a death of one of the parties on title and didn't have something called probate.
Yes.
And as a result, prevented the deal from closing. But that's not, it's not, as you would put it, one of the craziest title problems that we've ever had.
No.
Not owning the land you thought you owned is probably quite bizarre.
Yes.
But it's happened before.
Have you had like you said, where it's the size of the property, anything? Because we do have the more or less by what? 0.5%.
It's not a science.
No, but like anything that's been like you are way out to lunch.
Well, quite often we don't know.
Right.
The title search doesn't disclose the monuments on the land.
Right.
It discloses the raw land itself.
Yeah.
So when we search a title, we don't see if there's a house on the property,
right,
or a fence, or a hedge line that delineates the lot line,
right,
or a rear coach house or detached garage.
Right.
We don't see those things necessarily.
No.
So, but the legal description will often at least disclose what the approximate size of the land is.
Yeah.
We had a client once that bought a home in the Southwest that was an L shape, and it turned out that a very large, almost 50% of the parcel, they didn't even know wasn't theirs, but was the property owner from the rear. And it was only a couple of years later that they became aware of it, only because of some dialogue between the parties.
Yeah.
The property owner that did own the land had allowed the people that we bought from to use the parcel, so it appeared as though it was part of the land. But again, without surveys, which have become a thing of the past, you can't verify exactly what you're getting. But again, very rare that sort of thing happens.
Yeah.
And I always recommend to clients, if you are going to invest money in expensive fencing or additions or pools and other expensive landscape, that it's not a bad idea to invest in getting a survey done
100%.
to verify your lot lines.
Yeah, especially I do find those country properties. I sell a lot of country, and you're backing on a farmer's fields, and same thing. You're using, maybe 3-4 feet. But if you're talking a whole block, that would be quite the surprise for somebody.
Absolutely.
Right? Oh, yeah.
And that's where title insurance saved the day.
Helps you.
Absolutely,
yes, exactly. So if it was like many years after, they could go to you and be like, okay, so this all happened. What do they, how do you?
I've seen all kinds of claims made after the fact where title insurance paid out large sums of money to existing clients. Nowadays, you have to have title insurance if you're financing the purchase.
Yes.
I just today, before I came here to the studio, chatted with a client who was buying a property with no financing. Mortgage companies require title insurance.
Yes.
But if you happen to be one of the rare buyers that are not financing, they're not getting a mortgage to buy their property, title insurance is not mandatory.
Right.
I almost make it mandatory.
I was going to say, I recommend
strong arm clients to spend the extra money and have us buy title insurance for them.
Yeah.
For that very reason, I had a dentist whose cabana was an inch over the lot line that no one knew about on large 2-acre parcels. So it was insignificant. But because they just didn't get along with their neighbor, and the neighbor suspected that his cabana encroached, well, $120,000 later, title insurance paid for a new cabana, a new substantial landscaping, because he had to move it.
Because he had to move it.
And so when you see those sorts of title insurance claims, I really endorse it.
Yeah. How much does title insurance even cost? Is it like...
It varies depending on whether financing is private or whether it's institutional, but a guiding sort of guideline, if you will, is just shy of 0.1% of your buy price.
So it's really...
Well, it depends. You're buying a $2 million property, it's about a $2,000 hit.
I guess so, but worth it. Like you said, well worth it in the end.
No question about it. You buy it once, it's yours for as long as you own the property.
No, I can appreciate that for sure. What is kind of going along with that? I feel like you're giving really good, valuable pieces of advice right now and tidbits, but is there something that you could say is your most valuable piece of advice, resource that you can give to our buyers and our sellers that are listening?
Sure. Make sure you're working with a really experienced lawyer who will spend the time. One of the biggest challenges in the industry for lawyers over the last 20 years is that our rates have dropped dramatically to the point where it's somewhat farcical in the sense that you'll spend $600-700 in terms of fees for a lawyer to do something that's as important as one of the biggest acquisitions in your life.
Totally.
And there are unfortunately lawyers that maybe are concerned with not spending too much time invested in a file because they're not billing by the hour, because they're not earning a premium dollar on the service that they're providing. And you'll never know. I can only speak for our practice, and that is we do the job. And it doesn't matter whether it's going to take me personally many more hours than it should. The client doesn't pay extra. And we do what we have to do, or you get out of the industry and you don't provide the legal work.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
If you're concerned with that.
Yeah, no,
I love that. But make sure you've got an experienced lawyer that you can communicate with, that you can reach. That's so important in the whole transaction.
Absolutely. And that's, again, why we recommend certain people, right? Like it is part of our job to... Again, it's that working team of all of us that are helping. And if we've got that in a lawyer, then here go the referrals, right? So that's why you guys hear about Stephan and the lawyers that we use, right? It's very important because it's for people going through this process, there's so like the intricacies of this process. A lot of people think real estate is easy.
Well, for many, it's new to them.
Right? And then you get into the process and it's a whole new world. So for me, for Marcy, for yourself, everyone that's kind of alongside in this journey, we're just helping them out because they wouldn't be able to do it on their own, right?
It's a team effort, and that includes your mortgage specialist.
Big time.
And just to share, in the last couple of years, we found that the institutional lenders are having a real hard time meeting the timelines that are necessary in closing deals. And we often are getting our mortgage instructions from the banks a day or two before the closing date, and that frustrates the whole process. And I encourage clients in that initial call to be very proactive over the next few weeks. Go back to their mortgage specialist, make sure there are no loose ends, so that we aren't scrambling at the 11th hour.
Yeah, I like that you said that because we're this kind of what we do. We send out our closing concierge, and it's the same thing. Like, make sure that the lawyers and the mortgage specialist or bank or whoever have had the conversation. Like, you need
to hold their hand, I think.
A little bit.
It's important because at the end of the day, not only do you want the deal to close, obviously, so we're all paid.
Yes.
But we want a happy customer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And to do that, we send an engagement email out that outlines in an exhaustive way, step by step, the entire process for them, reminding them about insurance and utilities and following up with their bankers. And if there's any issue, to please reach out to us at any point in time.
Yeah. And it's like, it is imperative to that process. And there's nothing worse, at least from my end, is getting that phone call the day of closing or the day before closing and be like, we don't have instructions yet. And you're just like,
And for the viewers, those are mortgage instructions.
Yeah,
we can't
yes.
prepare the mortgage without hearing from the lending institution.
We can't do anything. Everyone's hooped without it. So.
But when we get the morning of close, we get the deals closed.
Yes, absolutely.
My staff aren't happy. They got to drop everything, prep the docs very quickly, but we do what we need to do.
Yeah, and it's not nice for the client either, right? When
Absolutely.
we're like, it's a stressful time. So, but yes, having people in place that can pick up those pieces and get the job done.
Very
and maybe
important.
it's 6:00, but the deal is closing and we can all celebrate then.
Absolutely.
I guess that did kind of touch on then, the other part of what you do. So other than title search and whatnot, you do the documents and discharge. So that is essentially taking those mortgage instructions, bringing it to this new property. Tell us a little bit on that,
Sure.
How you discharge a property and then...
So the process real quick again is initially we're going to get a call from an agent or a call from a new client saying that they would like us to let them know what the cost involved is and whether we're available to do a deal. I'll contact the client. I'll spend anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour with them on that initial call. Give them as much info as possible so that they can make that educated decision. Once we open the file, we conduct our searches. We not only send out the correspondence to the seller's lawyer to protect our clients in that regard, but we're corresponding with, if we're selling, we're the ones contacting the current mortgage company to get a payout statement, which commonly is referred to as a discharge statement. We make sure when we're acting on a sale that we pay out the mortgages on title, any liens that are on title. There might be a financed furnace that we need to pay out.
Right.
We do all of that. We make sure the commissions are paid, all outstanding encumbrances, and then pay out the balance of funds to clients. And we usually do that same day of close. At the latest, the next day, we offer clients out of convenience will deposit their funds to their bank account rather than make them come in to pick up funds. But that's part of the whole process. On the buy end, we're doing all the searches. We are communicating with the clients. We schedule the Zoom meeting. We have when it's an electronic signing, we prep the docs in DocuSign is the program we use. We send them to the clients in advance of close. They know when they're coming. We then schedule a virtual meeting. We review all the docs. We review all the figures. We make sure the spelling of their names are correct on the deeds and that they walk away understanding everything that just happened. And then we complete the documents, send them to the seller's lawyer, prepare the docs for the mortgage company, send those to the mortgage underwriter so that on day of close, we receive the mortgage money by wire from the bank. We receive the balance of funds from the client, close the deal with the seller's lawyer, and send the welcoming call and email to the client.
And we love that one.
And we love the lockboxes.
It makes it a
much
lot
to the
easier,
chagrin,
I know.
perhaps, of the cost to the agents of their lockboxes. It is long overdue that we are not couriering keys and dealing with that part of the process.
I still couldn't believe we were doing that, and like that was prior to COVID, but. Yeah, I agree. That lockbox thing was
that came out of COVID.
The only thing. But so on that note, Stephen, we could be talking all day. I love this.
Long.
This is I am just feeling I feel so smart right now. And I'm sure our listeners and our viewers do too. But we always kind of wrap things up with two final questions.
Okay.
Are you ready for them?
Sure.
Okay. So what is something that you are loving right now? It is something that can be business, personal, a TV show, a book. I always say a podcast, like the Smart Move podcast, but no one laughs at that.
I've been a huge downhill skier my entire life. And I've started touring, which is a whole other episode where you climb the mountains, you ski.
Ooh.
And I have a son that lives out in a place called Terrace, British Columbia.
Okay,
So what I'm loving right now is the fact that I just booked the flight out there in a week.
Amazing.
And I'll be climbing the mountains and skiing some serious powder.
That is awesome.
There you go.
I love it. That is a good one. I'm very jealous of you.
Getting a little old for it, but I'm still hanging in there.
I'm I'll be 40 this year, but I'm like, my knees, should I be doing it? But I need to get my daughter on planks. So we're going. It's happening. I love that. Nice. If you could have dinner with anybody, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
I saw sort of the overview of some of the potential questions, and that one I didn't struggle with the answer at all.
Okay.
It would be my father, who passed 20 years ago.
Okay.
Was probably my best friend and confidant.
Beautiful, yeah.
Have a shrine in my office of pictures of dear old dad, and I probably have conversations daily with him.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
you know
definitely.
what it is? Yeah.
It would be him.
And that's a beautiful thing that you had a relationship like that with him too, right?
Don't want to tear up on camera.
I know. Stephen, the amount of times I cry on this podcast, it's unbelievable. Well, I so appreciate you for coming on. Thank you. This was your first podcast.
First podcast.
How do you feel?
Oh, piece of cake. Piece of cake.
See, there you go. It is
Move
not
over.
that bad.
Here comes my podcast.
I can't wait. I'll be your first guest.
Hey, why not?
Thank you so much for sharing all of your valuable insights and your knowledge. I love it. Thank you so much also for taking care of our clients. That's the biggest thing.
Always available to you and to your clients.
I
and
love
thank you for having me.
So as per usual, you guys can follow me on the Smart Move podcast, also on my Instagram at Rachel in Real Estate. If you want to see Stephen, do you have an Instagram? Do you have you've got your website.
I'm really, other than the website, reach out to me, email, phone call, always available, but
we'll have
not
it on
huge
here.
on the whole social media
That's
thing.
fair. Consider yourself lucky.
There you go.
We'll have all of his info here. Thank you guys so much for following along, and we will see you next time.